Thanks for joining us for another round of Mums at the Table, a place where we have unfiltered conversations about real situations. Joining me for these unfiltered conversations is Shona. How are you?
No, I'm unfiltered.
Good to see you.
She sure is.
Rachel.
Hi.
Lovely to see you. And Mel.
Hello.
It's been a long time.
It has.
I'm glad you're here with us. By the way, my name's Fiona. If you didn't know, just thought I'd throw that in.
Nice to meet you.
That was
Thank you. Now, coming up, we get to touch on some topics that you may or may not have even thought about, including the effects of tickling your child. We get some advice on hugs and touches. And did you expect or plan to raise your kids in the city or country or somewhere in between? We sit down with best-selling author and maternity consultant Kathy Fray, whilst Gia and her demi-chefs make sweet potato brownies. So stay tuned for that and more. But first, have you ever considered how important it is for our kids to play with the opposite sex? In a blog from A Mighty Girl, the benefits of girl-boy friendships are emphasised, and it mentions how our kids could learn a lot from each other, particularly in terms of conflict resolution. Are you ladies comfortable with your children playing with people of the opposite sex?
I think I'm going to have to learn to have to be, because that's what they do.
Right.
So
You've got girls?
I've got 3 girls, and 2 of them naturally sort of gravitate towards playing with the boys. I'm not sure if it's because one of them likes to be a bit more rough, or if they just don't want to deal with the hassle that girls bring, you know. I've said, play with the girls, and she's like, they don't want to let me play with them, so she'll play with the boys. She's like, I'm done with them.
So you think it's a problem?
No, look, problem's probably a strong word. I'm uncomfortable with it if they don't ever sort of have those girl friendships. Because
Why, though?
Because I think there's benefit in both. And I want them to have both and to be comfortable with both. And the other truthful answer is I'm not actually sure, because I look back at my upbringing and I gravitated towards playing with the guys too. So I don't know why I'm so shocked and a little bit uncomfortable with it. I haven't resolved that yet.
I think that's probably rubbed off on your kids. Maybe that.
Maybe I'm creating my own issues for them.
But I think there is actually a lot of value. I'm coming at from it more from a maybe more like an older kind of kid point of view, in the sense that when I was in senior primary school, lower high school and stuff like that, I went into an all-girls school. And I really actually think that it actually affected the way that I feel and I behave around boys. Like, I didn't really know.
Even
Because you
now?
weren't used to?
Exactly. Now, I've gotten over my issues now because, you know, I've been out of school for so long.
You're a grown woman.
Yeah, I am a grown woman. But, yeah, I think I look at everybody else, right, who've been to co-ed schools, and they seem to be able to know how to relate better with boys, not in the relational, romantic sense, but just even friendship-wise, you know?
Yeah.
So are you going to foster those sort of friendships with Elliot of the opposite gender? Like, are you going to do that with him?
I don't know whether I'm going to force it or not. Like, you know, if it happens, it happens. But, yeah, I mean...
Do you think part of our problem is that our culture is over-sexualised, and every time we see boys and girls together, we go, oh, you know, it's going to
They
lead
must
to
be
other
dating.
things. Yeah, they're dating, or it's going to lead to other things rather than just a friendship. Do you think that's where we're going?
I think that's absolutely one of the points, and I think part of my uncomfortability with it is the things that one of my daughters is coming home about what the other kids are saying, and it sounds like it's being over-sexualised, so probably that's when my ears are like,
Yeah, that's the terrible thing, because at primary school age, right, you know, that's when the kids are like, oh, I don't want a boyfriend, I don't want a girlfriend, and then you keep teasing them about that. That's what's going to drive the wedge.
Yeah, I actually grew up with brothers, so it was beneficial in the sense that I kind of knew how a guy thinks and how they act in everyday life, not the best front that they put on when they meet a girl. So I guess that was beneficial in that sense. But in terms of hanging out with boys, no. I was not allowed to have boyfriends growing up, because otherwise I liked them or they liked you, and that wasn't encouraged at all. So, yeah, it's interesting.
Look, I know from my point of view, because my youngest has always socialised with girls more than boys, and I've never had a problem with it. Other people had a problem with it. I remember a friend from church saying, oh, well, you know, aren't you worried about him staying over with girls and having sleep-outs and things like that?
He sleeps over?
Well, he used to, and I was like, no, I trust him. I trust the people that he's staying with. Nothing will happen. And it never did. You know, I think you've got to instill values into your kids. Yeah.
I think what you're saying is right. Like, we need to sort of allow them to have those friendships, and if they gravitate there, that's something I just have to learn to manage. I'm not about to cut it off, but Yeah, it is something. Those values are really important.
They are.
I guess it starts from home. It starts from home, but it's hard when we live in an environment and media who pushes those messages to our girls and boys. You know, girls play
Even
with girls
in the
and boys play with
kids'
boys.
movies and in the kids' TV shows, that's
right.
pushed, and so it's always in their face.
Yeah, interesting. Look, thanks for the insight, ladies. Now, the Bible shares many texts on friendships, one of which is found in Proverbs 13:20 and states, "He who walks with the wise will be wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm." And if you don't know, now you know. But switching gears from friends to your postcode, where will you raise your kids? If you have them, does it matter? In the city or the country? Somewhere in between, perhaps, ladies? Are you raising your kids where you planned to raise your kids?
I raised my kids where we had them.
Okay.
When I didn't have a choice.
Right,
I come
which was city, country?
Well, they've predominantly grown up in the city.
Yes.
Then we moved on to up the coast a bit further, and now they've moved back down and we've stayed up there.
So it wasn't a planned
Nope.
process.
No.
It was just we had the kids in the city, so we're going to raise our children
Yep.
here. What about you, Mel? Did you think about these things?
Oh, well, I've always just thought city because I was born, raised in a city, and I don't see myself moving into the country anytime soon. So
Why not?
Why?
What don't you like about
Well-
the country?
it's actually funny. Like now, I've started to grow to love the country, and I did consider bringing Elliot to the country and moving there, right? But we didn't, mainly because of the resources that we were being exposed to. So, where I wanted Elliot to be exposed to a multicultural environment, to be able to learn Mandarin as well. And we weren't able to find that kind of multi-language schools and everything like that. So in terms of resources, it was hard. But yeah, at the same time, I've just recently read that there is studies have come out to show that kids who actually grow up without any green spaces around actually have up to 50% chance of actually developing mental disorders.
Is that right?
So it's important to have the country space, but yeah, at the same time.
But you don't always have a choice where you bring kids up.
Yeah.
Like if you've got a job and it's somewhere and you need to be there and close to it, then that's where you bring them up.
education.
Rach, where are you raising your children?
Well, I guess some people would call it the country. I mean, there's not a set of lights there, so it is a country town. But I really like that. That's what I want for my kids. And I always say to my husband, when we get a set of lights, we're moving further out.
Wow. And is that how you grew up?
Yeah, like I grew up in Papua New Guinea for 5 years, so that was a lot of space. And I guess I grew up on the Central Coast, which was city-ish. It wasn't country, but I do love the space. I love my freedom. I love the slower pace of that. That's what I resonate with.
But then for your kids, like I've just heard my teenage boys go, we want to move where there's happening stuff. We don't want to be in a place where there's shuts down at 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah. So what's the benefits of living in the city?
Look, just what Mel's saying. There's a lot more opportunities. There's a better scope for education. They both have pros and cons.
Yeah.
Certainly the country life is a lot slower. You get to know your neighbours, whether that's good, bad or ugly.
Some people hate that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not a big fan of that.
Walk around in your undies if you want.
Yeah. But
Speak for yourself.
in the article it said that they knew the people in the shops and they knew the butcher and I think country life can do that, but you can also make that happen in the city as well.
By going out every weekend, perhaps?
But also being a community inside of yourself, opening yourself up to other people, saying hi in the supermarket to someone.
Something that's so rare, I think, in growing up in the city is that we don't say hi. So because I actually studied out in the country, and I remember thinking, these people are saying hi, this is awkward, and we would leave our doors open when we would go to study. So I found that weird as well. And then coming back to the city to get my KFC fix was the best feeling because I was like, oh, there's lights, there's traffic, there's people. It's a good feeling. So I think it just depends on
There are success stories of people out of the country and out of the city. So it really depends on what you value, but where you also need to be.
Yeah, that's so true. There's pros and cons to both city and country living, but as your family grows, your location preference may change. I'm curious to know if you think city life is better than country life when it comes to raising kids, and why. Just drop us a line on our socials. But now, let's get in the kitchen with Gia and her demi-chefs who are making sweet potato brownies.
Healthy chocolate brownies are the way to go. This is a way that you can teach your children to actually, like if you teach them how to make this sort of stuff at this age, when they're older, it's just habitual. They start to make healthier treats for their families as well. And then that way they're, just going for a healthier version rather than going for the really bad brownie that's got like fat in it and lots of bad stuff, lots of sugar. This brownie, there's only 3 ingredients to this brownie and it's so easy to make. Sweet potato is the main ingredient. So sweet potato, you have to bake the sweet potato in the oven, and then when it's still hot but easy to handle, you put it, so I've just cut it in half, you put it in the bowl. Make sure the skin's off it. It's still hot, but it's easy to handle, so it's cool enough for me to use my hands. And in here, we're gonna put almond meal, which is the second ingredient. What's in here?
Almond milk.
Almond meal. So just almond meal or almond flour, whatever you want to call it. And all you need, the third ingredient, is just dark chocolate. I like to use, what is this, Momo?
Chocolate.
Is this your favourite thing in the world? It is, isn't it? I'm trying to teach him. I've mastered my daughter, like, not to eat too much sugar with her teeth. But my son, he doesn't care. Give me holes, that's all he cares. Anyway, so this is dark chocolate and it's got no dairy in it. So I just use like really dark chocolate, which is less in sugar and no dairy. And that's it, 3 ingredients. And all you do now is you just mix it through, and the heat from the sweet potato will melt the chocolate slowly and it'll all get really dark. Do you want to help me? Okay. Whoa, good work. Brownie, yum. Once I'm finished this, I'll put it in a lined dish and you put it in the fridge until it cools down. I'm telling you, it really tastes like brownie, but it's like sweet potato. So as you can see here, as I'm mixing, see how all the chocolate's gone through it a bit? You will still have a little bit of sweet potato bits in it, but slowly it'll mix through. Okay, are you going to help me put it in here?
Yeah.
So I'm going to, can you push it down? Can you pull it out or push it all out? That's it. So I've just got a lined dish. Whoa. So we're going to put it in the lined dish. And if you want it really quickly, just put it in the freezer until it cools down. This will make you about 8 pieces, 9 pieces. Ooh, good sized pieces. Okay. It is moreish, so when you start with it, you're like, oh, that's delicious. So don't overdo it. There you go, gluten-free, dairy-free. We'll be back to show you what it looks like. See you in a minute. The brownies are ready. The sweet potato brownie is ready, and here it is. So I'm gonna cut it and show you what it looks like. It's been in the freezer because we didn't really have time to just let it sit in the fridge. But if you've got time, just put it in the fridge. It seriously still has bits of sweet potato coming from it. This is what it looks like. How awesome is that? And the taste, it's insane that it actually tastes like brownie. I am going to try a piece. We'll see you next time. I'm gonna see how delicious it is. This one's better than yesterday's. Try the recipe. Let us know what you think. Facebook, Mums at the Table. Find us, write in the post. See you next time.
Now, for more easy-to-make recipes like that, we're giving away copies of this Sanitarium Nourishing Cookbook. All you have to do is write into us with your name, postal ID and the title of this book, Nourishing, and we will send it out to you for free. But it must have been a slow news day when this article came out from essentialkids.com. Why tickling your child is not always a laughing matter. It outlined the effects of unwanted tickling and how consent should be sought prior. Whilst for some the natural response is involuntary laughter, others see it as a deceptive response that results in feeling scared, overwhelmed and even violated.
Do you think this article came out because some adults aren't actually giving consent to kids?
I actually think it's ridiculous.
Do you? Why?
Tickling, come on. You don't go tickle random people. You're tickling your kids.
Well, some do.
You're tickling your kids. In most cases, not many strangers would go up to my child and just randomly intentionally tickle them. But I'm talking about family members, and, you know, it's a play thing. We're
But
taking
when you
it too
tickle your
serious.
child and they say no, you can tell. You know if it's a good no or a bad no. You know that. But maybe an uncle doesn't. Maybe, you know, an auntie doesn't, or a bigger cousin.
I just think we're taking it too far. What's next? We're not allowed to hold our kids' hands because it's touching. I just think tickling, it's a fun part
I
of
don't
growing
think they're saying
up.
you can't do it. They're just saying consent is the issue. Like, if they're saying no, stop. What's the problem with that?
I just find it a bit awkward. It would be awkward for an uncle or an auntie to say, hang on, Lisa, I'm about to tickle you. Are you okay with that?
It's so awkward. No, but why not, if they say no, stop? Like, I've seen people continue. I've had people continue tickling me, and you can't control your response.
Yeah.
Like,
But you're not going to tickle them till they're like running out of air, you know, dying for a breath of fresh air.
well, that's where tickling originated. It was a torture, a use of torture. Yeah, it was in the Han Dynasty and in other places,
In
like
other cultures.
centuries ago. They used it as a form of torture.
Yeah, it's torture for me when somebody's tickling me.
So you don't like to
I
be tickled?
hate being tickled.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah.
Do you agree with the article? This mother, you know, we should ask our parents.
I'm with you. It's this police parenting is going too far for me.
Going too
Yeah.
far.
You're playing with a child. You don't have to keep asking for permission. It's play is spontaneous.
I agree with that completely. I'm just saying they took issue with the article when people say no. Like, there was a story of one girl, her father tickled her all the time. She hated it. She would say no. He would continue. When she was 13, she ended up breaking his finger and he never tickled
Good
her
on
again.
her.
Yes.
So I am talking about those
Yeah,
extreme
the
cases,
extremes.
not the everyday playful stuff.
Yeah.
But
There is actually a parenting book that I read, right, that actually said that you should never ever tickle your child.
Really?
Yes, exactly. Well, I didn't read the rest of the book because when I saw that, it discredited everything to me because it just went out into the bin. Because the thing is, it's a spontaneous love thing. Yes, I agree with what Rachel is saying. If the child says no, stop.
yes.
But
Don't
really,
continue doing
do
it.
you go? Do you really go? Can I tickle you now?
That just takes the fun
It
out.
does. It completely takes the
And
fun
it's
out of
something that I think a lot of parents and loved ones do with their loved ones, with the little kids in particular. Of course, if the kid is anti, don't touch me, then you're not going to. And you learn, you know, it's common sense. That person doesn't want to be touched. But it's not something that we need to be, can I get your
No, but
permission
common
signed?
sense isn't that common to some people.
Yeah.
So-
days.
But I guess there was also an interesting part of the article that I think we need to think of as parents, there's a safety aspect to it. Because
Yeah.
we're
It
teaching
can
our
lead to
kids-
grooming.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there is apparently evidence that it's one form that
Grooming.
Yeah, I don't think we need to
use.
police it, but we also need to be aware. Hang on, I'm the person who's in control tickling. I also need to make sure that they're not, you know, upset on the inside.
Do you think it's also something that you're objecting to it is because it teaches a child that, you know, even though they say stop and a person's continuing to tickle them, it might teach, you know,
I've
when they
seen
grow older.
circumstances where they're saying stop and the other parent says, oh, no, you're right, keep tickling
Yeah.
them. And that just gives no power to this child. So,
Or their
as
body.
I said, I'm speaking about extreme circumstances that we just need to be aware of.
Yeah, that is the boundary that I draw. Like, I tickle him without his permission, but if he says stop, I stop.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I stop for 5 seconds and he goes, tickle me again. So then I do.
Look, there's something to think about next time you go to tickle someone, particularly young children. Be sure to get their approval first and make sure they aren't in pain. But now some tips from our wellbeing expert. Let's check this out.
Now, we're talking about a subject today that I think really matters, particularly if you've got one of those kids that runs away from you at the school gate. Touch and hugs, why they're so important. Why are they of value to kids to get that kind of contact?
So physical contact, particularly hugs and touch, are known to reduce stress. So we've seen hospitals incorporate kangaroo care. We've seen it for quite a while now, but they know that skin-to-skin contact with tiny little newborns, we actually see their whole physical bodies and health improve because they're touched. We've seen orphanages over many years ask volunteers to come and cuddle and play with children because it has physical benefits to your brain and to your body. Dr. Spence from Oxford, who's a big researcher on senses, says that touch and smell are the more closely linked senses to our well-being than the others. And so he says we are growing up with a touch-hungry generation. Our children are touch-deprived. Screens are part of the problem, but we need to make sure that we're reaching out and touching our children often. For children to feel loved, he says they need touch to feel that love is real.
Yeah, well, touch and hugs, it's one of those subjects that unfortunately has become really complex and there's lots of social etiquettes involved around it. So you're never going to force a kid to obviously give you a hug if they don't want to. But if you want to make sure your child gets all those benefits, how can you actually help them then?
I'm glad you said that, because we need to be careful we don't force our children to hug grandma or hug auntie and uncle just because that's what you do with family. If your child, their body language says, I don't want to do this, there may be nothing sinister. It's just your child doesn't feel that kind of need or doesn't feel love through that kind of hug from that family member. Children on the autism spectrum particularly are averse to certain types of touch and sensations. So for touch to be meaningful, it must be what your child feels says, I love you or I care. So actually ask your child, what can I do that says I love you? What touch do you love?
So once you've done that then, what are some specific ways you can actually offer that care to your kids?
So I think things like fist bumps, rough and tumble play, some children love and feel that's loving, arm tickles at night, head massages, side hugs. So really, again, it's going back to the child and asking them, does this feel loving to you?
Right, and finding out what's specific to your kid, Colette. Thank you, Colette. Really appreciate it. And you can find out more tips and tricks in Colette's new book, They'll Be Okay. And of course, follow us on social as well.
Joining us now for a chat on all things good and not so good in motherhood, she's an author of bestseller titled Oh Baby, a maternity consultant and midwife. Please welcome Kathy Fray. Thanks for being here, Kathy.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, it's good that you're here. Now, I just wanted to find out, I know you've written several books, but what was the journey, what was the reasoning behind writing all these books on motherhood?
Okay, well, the first one, Oh Baby, Birth Babies, Motherhood Uncensored, that's the one that's been around since 2005. And the reason that I started writing that was just because I had young kids and I was really annoyed at the books that were out there. And I just thought, oh, they're all so pious and perfect and it's not like this. And I was really just writing more just to get things off my chest cathartically. And then I realised that I'd written a book.
Whoops. That just happened.
Pretty much did.
I love that you did that. So what did you focus on? Was there a particular part of motherhood that was frustrating in terms of what you could find in the bookstores or anywhere else? Like, what did you focus on?
I focused, I guess, on the stuff that I just didn't get. At that stage, this was before I was a midwife, I had 3 under 4, and I'd been making all these decisions based on informed consent, and I didn't really think I felt that informed. And what happened was, at that stage, the building economy had plummeted. My husband's a carpenter, and he took on a 2-year contract because we were SIFs, single income, 5 tummies. And so we took on this 2-year contract out of town. So he was away from home Monday to Friday. And I sort of lived the life of a solo mum. And the kids were in bed at 7 and we had dial-up internet and we couldn't afford like cable TV or anything. So I was bored.
So you're also a midwife?
I became a midwife after that. When I was pregnant with my 3rd baby, I remember saying to my mother, I think I know what I want to do when these kids are a little bit older. And she's like, oh, what? And I said, I think I'll become a midwife. And she's like, yes, dear.
It's interesting because I know, like, in Australia, the average age for women having children is 31, and then it's apparently increasing in some affluent suburbs.
Totally, yes.
But do you think, because you're a midwife, have you seen the difference in terms of younger women and more mature age women pushing when it comes to the delivery time? Is there a difference there? Because they always say...
A difference of the actual pushing stage?
Well, yeah, when it comes to a woman's strength, and because you're a midwife, you would have seen, is there really an issue with that? Because I feel like the professionals tell us, have the babies early, have them at your 20s, because it's harder when you know. But so I think from a midwife perspective, I would like to know, what's that about?
I would have to say that when you see a 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old's body in labour and the efficiency of the womb and the cervix to dilatate and things, you have to sort of sit back and go, oh, yep, that's when we're supposed to do it.
Really?
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to ask.
Physiologically.
Yeah.
Right.
And certainly, but I think probably of more consequence is the emotional.
Yeah, I was just
side
going
of
to ask,
things.
but emotionally, where are we going?
Because, I mean, if we go right back to sort of the days of the village, when, you know, it was normal to have your first baby at, say, 17 or 18, but often, you know, you've got the village there and the grandparents are in there helping you, and everybody expects you not to be able to do this on your own. But now what we've got is when you see, when you've got women who are under 25 having a baby and everyone calls them a young mother, and you just want to vomit on that one. I mean, like, really, a young mother? Like, when? For the last 50 years she's been a young, not even that. You know, for tens of hundreds of thousands of years before that, that's actually an old mother, right?
Oh, right.
So it's kind of insulting.
That would maybe
Yeah.
a grandma. When I had my children, because I had them later in life, right? So I really wanted to know that side of things from a midwife's perspective.
So I think that, and I do feel for the women who are, you know, in their mid-20s and pregnant with their first, because you do get tired of people telling you, oh, you're such a young mum, and you're the youngest person in the antenatal classes and whatnot, which is ridiculous, but you are. So you're right, that the average age is more sort of early 30s. But certainly the women who are, say, in their early 40s with their first baby,
Really?
Yeah.
sorry, girls.
Yeah. Even the post would probably be more like the postnatal in terms of
Yeah,
recovery.
they're
Might take
used to
longer.
being very successful and in control and in charge. And sometimes when you see the younger mums, especially sort of in their early 20s, they can be so cruisy in the postnatal period because they don't have expectations.
Do you think they're cruisy in their parenting as well? Like as an older mum, I probably feel like I'm probably like a little bit tight, whereas if I was younger having kids, I may have been a bit more cruisy. Is that a common thing too?
Yeah, I guess there is, you know, that's where maybe sometimes there's almost too much cruise. Yeah. Right? By the time they're up to 3 or 4 and they're just like little nightmares. Maybe.
Not my Johnny.
Yes.
I know, because he's far above average intelligence.
right.
That's right.
Talking about 3-year-olds, it's funny you mentioned that. Emotional 3-year-olds. I've got one who's actually going to be turning 3 tomorrow, but I just feel like
Right.
she is different to the older. Is it like a second child syndrome, or is there something we can do about emotional 3-year-olds?
She beat to her own drum.
She beats to something, I tell you that.
You're not recognising the drum beat, but she is.
But I think like a lot of parents go through this certain period, I think, and usually 2-3, where they're like, they just have a...
I feel like it's the second
Yes.
child.
Or sometimes it can be the first as well.
Can it?
Yeah.
But I think it's that, in fact, the more children you have, the more you realise, like, oh gosh, they come in so much variety.
But I was just thinking about what you were saying about beating to her own drum. Like, what are the typical things that you look out for when for a 3-year-old, for a 4-year-old?
Well, when you've got a child who's like your personality, it's just easier.
Okay.
Right? But that's not often the case,
Yes.
right? And that's where, well, if you've got one, you can tend to be very
Hovering.
centre of the universe and everything focuses. And 2 can be sort of neat and tidy.
Yeah.
You know, because you can have one on each hand, or he's got one and you've got one. And 3 or more, awesome.
Yeah. Look,
Goes to chaos and you just...
that's where I'm at. Thank you so much, Kathy, for being here. If you want more information on where to get Kathy's books, check out kathyfray.com. Ladies, thanks for the chat. And to you at home, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to share, like and subscribe if you're watching us online, because there's always more room for more mums at the table. Until next time, God bless.